In today's video, we will be getting Bill Kerman onto the surface of Minmus, and what better way to do it than in this big fancy base. Yes guys, today's mission is getting the base on Minmus. So first, I will be going into the VAB, a little bit accelerated, and I will be constructing this base. So that would be step 1. We designed the base as it's supposed to be landed on Minmus. That would be step 1. Step 2 would be then disassembling the base and making sure that we can launch it. And then 3 is of course launch, 4 assembly, and then 5 landing. So I will be splitting this video. This will be a very long video, roughly 50 minutes, but I will be splitting and you will see the chapters in the description below. So if that happens, you know where to look for stuff. So I already knew that this base I will need to be assembling in orbit because it is a little bit too wide to be launched inside of a fairing, so it doesn't really feel aerodynamic. I'm not really, a big fan of launching stupid things into orbit. KSP 1 or 2, it doesn't matter. However, in KSP 2, that means that my life will become infinitely more difficult because I will actually need the docking ports that you're seeing on the core stage, and we will need to dock all of these base components in orbit. In orbit around Moon, or in orbit or Minmus, or in orbit around Kerbal, that remains to be seen. However, I have decided that I'm going to go for the 4-way symmetry, and I'm going to design now this as a separate subassembly using one of the new beautiful features that KSP2 actually offers. So my core stage is the cupola module with the 2 Mark II lander can, fuel tank, and the poodle engine. And then the other stages will contain of the, of course, hitchhiker module, probe core, because we need to be able to control this thing remotely to dock somehow. Then a docking port and other kind of adapters. And I wasn't sure if I was going to land this on Minmus or on the Mun, so I have actually gone and designed that each of these stages has a little bit of a landing motors. Here you can see each stage will have like 2 Terrier engines plus the fuel tank. So now they will get connected. So this should provide us enough oomph to be able to successfully land on the Moon, even on the engine bells themselves. So I went quickly into the, blueprint mode just to make sure that my engines are aligned correctly, and once I actually place the landing legs, that basically everything would be hunky-dory. For that, this actually projection with like a blueprint mode is amazing. I love it. Then we needed to go with the landing legs, and the landing legs as extended look like this. So they should be perfect in terms of when they land out on the suspension, we should be golden. So like I said, until I've actually went and flown this, so let me quickly try it out. I think that looks good enough. I'm overall happy with the design. However, I did feel we need some more landing legs to actually keep it secure, rather than the engine bells. Also, I wanted to have, a communitron, and then I wanted to have some solar panels, because we do need solar power, of course, Minmus, Moon, or wherever. And as we extend it, it looks kind of nice. Now, this is called the Minmus base. Yeah, all of my crafts apparently are called flight safe. Yeah, nod to Scott Manley over there. So, now, the next order of business was to put in the ladders. Yeah, alright. And then the rest of the landing gear, which should be roughly here. And that's going to be placed like that. So once they extend, yeah, they will look similar way as they did with all others. Good. So that's the landing gear taken care of. And then I've just duplicated the craft to make sure that all the craft has the landing legs in the exact same spot. Okay, now we come to setting up the action groups. The action groups, oh boy. So a quick undo fixed the problems, and then let's retract the landing legs, and then we're gonna do the action groups. So, utility, I need the landing legs. Where are the landing legs? Wombat. So, we have set that individually each leg is put marked to the 0 action group, which sometimes is unnecessary because, KSP has its own legs action group. And then I have put Communotron on its separate group, and the solar panels, of course, well, we have an action group for that as well. Okay, save the craft, just to be safe from Kraken, and then let us be constructing the rest of the thing. So this put aside, I needed to figure out a way how would this be launched. Obviously, let's put some, lights to shine a light on the problem, and we have to figure out how to get this launched, because deployed it will be too wide. So rather than that, I went for some, separatrons, or not separatrons, this is like, well, not decouplers, but stage separators. And then I put this tiny piece of station core, and then I put another station component here. So another separatron, or, stage separator. That's the word I'm looking for. There we go. So since that didn't work, I decided to go with docking ports. And then docking ports, I figured that they will litter less. So I've put the docking ports, and look at this. This would actually fit. So yeah, if I put a fuel tank like this, and then a bigger tank underneath it, this is how I could actually get this transferred wherever I need it in the solar system. So with that thing being said, I need to figure out what engine I'm gonna put, because it has to have enough oomph to transfer everything. So I was going with probably the Rhino. The Rhino would give us a sufficient amount of, thrust to weight, and sufficient amount of delta V. By the way, I don't know if this is exact, I'm just eyeballing this. Yeah, alright. So that actually looks to me like it makes sense. So now what I want to do, I want to make sure that I'm trying to see, here I'm missing the delta V readout of this thing. And that, if I just reconnect it, it's 5.7 thousand minus the 3.3 thousand, that gives us 2 point something thousand, which would be enough to basically get this to Minmus. So yeah, now 4.8, same thing. Okay, let's strut everything together just to make sure that we don't get any, Kraken wobbly stuff attacks and whatnot. Alright, then we put another decoupler below, and now I put a huge XL stage fairing. I really hate how the fairings are implemented. I would very much like the KSP1 style fairing, please. That one were much better in my honest opinion. So devs, if you're watching this, consider it like a constructive critique, because these things are really... I love this like blueprint mode, but building of these fairings is not really helpful, to be honest. Alright, there we go. A little bit more. It's a different way of building, but like I said, I'm not overly, crazy about it. Okay, connected. Well, there's the fairing build. It's not just hard, it's just different. Okay, so now this thing is actually a bug where this thing flaps like a Flappy Bird all over the place, but well, let's hope it goes with a future coming patch. I managed to strut everything to that plate, and then I've decided to put 2 sets of large reaction wheels. And then I realized, hold on, well, those reaction wheels are put below. No, they should be put in here, inside the fairing. Which forced me to actually recreate another set of, well, not stage separator, struts, and then once again just make sure that everything is placed correctly. Okay, that looks good. Yeah, these projection views are awesome. I mean, devs, whoever thought about this is like golden. Whenever designing the craft, that makes the design process a lot easier. Now, let's go to the fuel tanks. I'm gonna go with the XL fuel tanks, and when I was doing my station tutorial and docking, thank you of you guys who commented on this. I got a comment who said like, well, my argument was that I didn't have a big enough engine to get this to orbit. And one of you said, well, why don't you put a thrust plate and put like 8 vector engines or something like that, and then you basically have a Falcon 9. Good suggestion. Let's do that. So we put the thrust plate, and given the ginormous size of this rocket, I have decided to put like vector engines, and I was thinking, so if we do the Falcon Heavy, let's put a mainsail in the middle because I need a more powerful engine. Vectors alone are not gonna cut it. I've tested and I've managed to get the thrust to weight of 0.8, which is not enough, so, or 0.5. So I've decided to go here like 8 pieces. And if you go like this, yeah, 0.81. See? Not enough. However, if I place here, let's say mainsail, then we get to something like 0.974 for whatever reason. And of course, the reason being it bugging out. But 0.974 could be doable because it's very close to 1. So if I put a couple of Clydesdale boosters on the side to get it high enough, we will quickly get over 1.0. So that was kind of my argument and reasoning when it comes to building this damn thing. So I figured, let's do it that way. So I've put like 4 radial decouplers, and honestly, it turned out to work pretty well. So when I put 4 Clydesdales, then you get basically a very, very nice and hefty thrust to weight of, I think, 1.4-ish or 1.5. Let me just quickly check now. I do want to strut everything to oblivion or oblivion. Yeah, I didn't have my morning coffee. I'm not a native English speaker. Well, what can I do? So, now what do? We put every single rocket in the bottom stage. So how much does that give us in terms of thrust to weight? Yeah, like I said, thrust to weight would be awesome here. So, I mean, devs, please, thrust to weight per stage and delta V readout per stage. Well, sometimes they work, sometimes they just bug out for whatever reason. So 9.2 meters per second, and let's go to the launch. Yeah, sorry for a little bit choppier frame rate, but I'm gonna let you on a little secret. This is not the craft I have been designing. Yeah, shocking, right? So why? Because when I was launching the craft that I have been designing, I did launch it and it did get to orbit, but the average frame rate was roughly 4 frames per second on our RTX 2080. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. It's sometimes how it is. But I'm playing this 2 times accelerated and you can still enjoy the music and it's decent, right? When I sped up the original footage, the music was... Okay. So with that thing out of the window, I have decided to re-record everything where I completely dumped everything inside of the fairing except for a command pod and 2 reaction wheels. So you can see here, you can tell by the Valentina Kerman flying this up because Bill was already in the orbit, successfully came there, but I needed to re-record this to make this even remotely viewable. Yeah, I know. Sorry about the deception, guys. It's more of the KSP2 performance thingy than it is of the actual getting there. And honestly, getting this footage took me 4 hours from launch to orbit. So, yeah. It tested my sanity, and a couple of discussions with my shrinks later, I have decided to do this. Yeah, and now I'm just kidding. Anyway, but it did take me 4 hours. So, the moment you will see at some point switch between Valentina and Bill. The reason why I did this is for you guys to be able to enjoy the score at the launch, the musical score. I cannot recommend it enough. It's phenomenal. The sounds, the roar of the engines, everything is just so phenomenal that I really felt Guys, you need to hear it. So, as we approach 25 kilometers, we switch to the actual craft being launched, which is piloted now by Bill Kerman. And this is the actual thing that went into orbit. So, yeah, on the launch pad, 4 frames per second, and when I was initially staging, it was 4 seconds per frame. But that will get improved, and I'm not complaining. I'm really enjoying the game, and honestly, this was just one of the million bugs that I've experienced getting this thing, which was one of the reasons why recording this video took roughly a little bit over 10 hours. Right, so, okay, now, our apoapsis is going around 107. I'm gonna go to 150 kilometer orbit, roughly, because I felt it would be a good, high enough orbit, given with the high par count. By the way, this guy's craft had 192 parts, all in all. So, right. If you're ever interested to see the original footage, how it looked, let me know. Might post a short on it. It's really bad. But, like I said, I don't want to complain. I'm enjoying the KSP2 very much, and I'm sure the devs will fix it. This game is just phenomenal. And, like, the musical score is... It's just crazy. It's beautiful. Right, so... Let me just quickly check now, getting into the orbit, aligning up the maneuver node. By the way, along this playthrough, I managed to actually put a couple of mods like Mini Engineer and all that stuff. And as you can tell by this permanent apoapsis and periapsis, this is not a stock game, this is actually a mod downloaded from the Space Dock. A big courtesy and thank you guys, I mean, this is a lifesaver for me. So, another burn will be in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And then, once we actually get into orbit, we're gonna post a craft that will be orbit normal, I think. And then we're gonna be doing the dockings. Oh, the horror of it. Yeah. Anyway. There we go. So let's accelerate time a little bit, and then we're gonna get over to the docking. Oh, sorry, to the ejection part. By the way, I have no idea what's wrong with the fairings. Fairings shouldn't be deploying like this forward. They should be deploying sideways, as far as I understood the fairings. And look at this, and they immediately fall to the ground, which is another bug that in KSP2. Okay, no matter. Let's turn on the lights. And we have 1 minute and 10 seconds. Yeah, I think the craft looks kind of nice. The only thing that I'm really concerned about is actually docking these damn things, because they're not really symmetrical. And I have a little bit of monoprop headway, but I don't have a lot. Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Okay, so the burn will stop in 43 seconds, and that will expend 1043 meters per second. By the way, guys, one word of warning. I've heard from the community that if you're using these landing legs that I'm using, your fuel will drain from your upper stages as well, for some weird reason. So be very careful when you're burning. You might later want to transfer the fuel, and I'm gonna show that, but I just want to show you and warn you, because this has happened to my Duna mission, which I've shown in the couple of previous episodes. I will be posting the link in the comments below. It's called Getting to Duna, and there I was wondering why was everything drained, and it was because I was using these landing legs, apparently, which thought that everything should be in the same stage and was draining the fuel accordingly. So, alright, we are getting orbital, we got 156 by 149, and that's good enough. Alright, a quick screenshot. Yes, another thing, devs, please, F12 is the Steam screenshot, but it's also the arrow interface. Okay, so this is the resource manager. Here we can actually do the transfer of the fuel, and look, all of my small fuel tanks are almost empty. while the second stage is still good, because it didn't have these landing legs. That's at least my interpretation, and some guys from the community actually warned me about it. So a big thanks to everybody that's warned me about this issue. So now the idea is we want to refill those small tanks because we'll need them for the landing. Otherwise we're going to end up just like another splatter on the surface of Moon or Minmus. So now I'm trying to figure out how to do the transfer, because this is the first time I'm using the resource manager. Please don't, blame me. And then I realized, aha, liquid fuel, oxidizer, it has to be somewhere here. So what do? I press this or no? Or do I press that? No, the arrow. Maybe I should go with the arrow. Now we're getting somewhere. So seeing these tanks, they're put in and they should be either in or out. So if I put these big 2 tanks, they should be going outwards. Is that enough? And then I figured, okay, let's start. Adjust flow states, because we said where it's going out, but we didn't say where it's going in. Okay, so I selected all of the other tanks and I pressed in, and then when I pressed start, it went without a hitch. Good. Alright, so now with the fuel transfer completed and our fuel tanks correctly filled up, it is time that we point ourselves orbit normal and start to plan our burn. Alright. So, there we go. Now, the next thing is actually performing the docking for these 4 components. I'm not gonna lie to you, it had its own challenges because, well, docking, it works in KSP2 and it's okay, but docking involves Kraken, and I was doing 4 of them. Yeah. So immediately when I undocked, it said, oh, no control, something went wrong. Why? And then I pressed the docking port. I have extended another Communitron, and this was being done controlled by the remote, not the remote tech, but, remote control. So, right. I had to basically retract and extend once again the Communitron because it said no Comnet connection despite the fact that I was there. So once I extended again, and when I went to the pod, then I was in full control. So now we come to the section, you see, fully functional. So guys, there is a bug. If you decouple, it will say out of control despite the fact that you are just above the Kerbal Space Center. So be careful with it. You still will be in control. You just need to basically redeploy your antenna. Once you redeploy your antenna, everything will be okay. Yeah, that was something. This is something that it took me a little bit to fix and understand. And also the way I felt that these reaction thrusters are firing way too often. So I only figured that on my 3rd and 4th docking, which sadly got corrupted, so I won't be able to show you 3rd and 4th. My basically thing got corrupted and it took me like 3.5 hours to just dock everything together. So for the sake of me keeping my sanity, I have decided, well, I'm gonna show you the first 2 and you'll figure out it's all the same more. Right. The only difference is that I have disabled the SAS when I was performing the RCS, which made the craft infinitely more, flicky, bumpy, and all that stuff. Okay, so targeting that docking port and controlling from my docking port, we had to make sure that we have a decent alignment, right? And I was doing all of this stuff visually. Sometimes my controls would have been flipped, reversed, and whatnot, so I was really careful. I was using the translation thrusters, I, J, K, L, and H, and M, of course. So, right. The first docking took me more than I would like to admit, because of these reaction thrusters firing, and I almost drained the monoprop completely. I mean, I was actually less than half. I thought when I decoupled this would be an easy peasy, just decouple, rotate, attach, that's it. But due to the decouple force, if you set it too low, the decoupler won't fire, or actually it won't move. And if it doesn't move, then you're in trouble, because then you start clipping through. Okay, so that is the first one. See, It takes some time, and actually it took me like 4 dockings to get this one in. So I decided to put out the solar panels just to make sure that my craft doesn't stay out of the reaction wheels, and then we have the second docking port, which will be taking place from the second one. And I went with the opposing ones for sure. So let's go with the second one. You can see me here experimenting with the impulse. So the moment I have decoupled, this happened. Why? Don't ask me, because I have no idea. Well, I decided to go with the program, and regardless of that, I was trying to control my probe. So, retracting and re-extending my probe so that I once get control over my craft, which was hard because it was spinning like bananas. And then I needed to decouple this, and again I've lost control. So once again, you know what to do. See, no ComNet connection. Retract. And then you need to redeploy, and then you have the connection. So, alright. Now, arrest the rotation, get back up and get into a semi-stable state. Alright. Try to point prograde. By the way, trying to any translations this was almost hopeless, so I have decided to, be the bigger guy and decided to go with the lazy docking approach. Point the station normal, rotate the docking port towards the craft, good, and the moment it got itself aligned, switch to the primary craft and redo the docking. Okay, let's set this target, and then, okay, the probe is fully functional, so time to go with the RCS thrusters. Yay! Translation shenanigans. Right, so that took additional half an hour in this case, an hour in some cases, and that's when I actually figured out, okay, I'm actually consuming and burning a lot of monoprop. I should probably be starting disabling the SAS, which made the whole problems a lot more pronounced. But, so I'm going to show you this docking, and then after that we are going to go to the rest, where the rest of the 4 have been docked because, well, my save just went bananas. And my recording for that matter. So, right. Okay, let's dock, but you get the idea. The point is decouple, stabilize, and then dock all 4 components and make sure that they are put in correctly. On this one, I actually had to do a couple of shenanigans because I was really getting very, very close to draining completely my monoprop fuel tank. And as you can see here, now I'm trying, and I'm actually really struggling to get it going upwards. And when I pressed upwards, then the other reaction thrusters were firing in the wrong direction. So I figured, oh, wait. I have to go, to the right. And yeah, it was overcompensating. Long story short, I was able to dock with like fumes to spare. Yeah, so that being done, you can see they're a little bit wonky, but I guess they will work. Then I have done an additional 2 dockings that I cannot show off the camera because my recording got corrupt, but once I finally finished this, it ended up looking like this. Yeah, I know, crazy. So once again, I'm going to redeploy the solar panels. I had to retract them because when I was docking these 2, I didn't want to accidentally blow off the solar panels in the process, so I had to retract them. So once I got this everything retracted, also I have encountered another weird bug that my monoprop was for some reason refilled. How? I have absolutely and honestly no idea whatsoever. So with that thing being said, I have just used some monoprop to actually get ourselves aligned nicely, and I was trying to get apoapsis and periapsis roughly in the 150 kilometer ballpark. So the next order of business was to secure that we get an encounter with Minmus. So that meant obviously orbital inclination change and also burn towards it. So let me go quickly to my base. Like I said, I've encountered a myriad of bugs here, but still there's fun to be had when you're playing with this. I mean, it really looks beautiful. I'm enjoying everything. It's just amazing. Alright, so, yeah, underneath all those bugs is a game that I really want to play, and I really want to enjoy it, and I am enjoying the moments when it works. It works. It's amazing. Right, so that thing being said, we have 25 seconds until the burn. It should be 228 to get ourselves, orbital alignment. All right, I'm making sure that I pressed the go. So let's see, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and ignition. Very careful not to overburn it. Right, oops. Okay, overburned it by a little. I think it will be fine. Alright. Now, next thing, I will be decoupling this guy because I think we only have a small amount of delta V after some, fuel transfers and making sure that we have enough fuel in the top tanks. So, we have this guy and we should probably do a screenshot, well, for posterity and for my motivation, because at this time I was already 6 hours in. Now comes the part that should be relatively simple, which would be ejection to Minmus and landing on Minmus. And actually, it was. So, let us find the maneuver node, and then we're gonna be doing some sort of Minmus intercept. And at this point, I have actually managed to download some mods when I was doing this transfer, and that was basically sticky apoapsis and periapsis, mini engineer, and a couple of more. And this maneuver node controller, guys, I cannot recommend this one enough. It's a lifesaver, honestly. Now, given that you don't see the trajectory, how it's going, I have eyeballed it by the entry and the exit point, and to me it looked pretty okay. So that means I didn't need to use the maneuver node fine planner, but yeah. Otherwise, it's a tool that I cannot live without. Now, so we have to point the craft maneuver prograde, and the burn will be 880 meters per second, and we have a total of 3,200 meters per second, so I'm not overall concerned. And it was at this point I have decided, you know what, I've already spent a lot of time and I want to go somewhere. So while Moon was very interesting, I have decided to go with Minmus simply because of the easier landings. Yeah. Maybe in the future I'll just take the save where I had this thing in orbit and I'm gonna take it to the surface of the Mun, but I don't know. Okay, so there we go. Big engine, and let's burn until we get a capture, or at least an intercept. Transfer to Minmus is the word I'm looking for. Yes. Alright, there we go. Beautiful. Alright, oh, take a screeny here. Okay, now we haven't gotten obviously the capture yet, but what I want to do, I always delete the maneuver node and I just keep burning in the same direction until I get a Minmus intercept, because I wanted to make sure that I get it right. So very carefully burning, and here we go. Good. Good enough. Probably the intercept to Minmus is not as great as possible, so let's go to the resource manager. Yeah, at this point I've gotten a whole lot of mods in addition. I've gotten everything because I wanted to secure myself that I could actually finish this. Normally, I've even gotten the cheat menu. I haven't used it, but if a bug struck me that would render the craft unflyable, I would have. So, yeah. Microengineer for my personal, enjoyment. If I've messed up something, well, own it. But if the Kraken hits you, well, then the cheating is okay, I think. So, Let's go and let's do... Oh, look at this. I mean, this game, guys. It's beautiful. And hearing this serene score. The only thing that bothers me is when I'm accelerating the time that the camera tries to pan and do circles around my craft for whatever reason. I'm not sure exactly why it does that, but I'm not liking it, not one bit. I prefer my camera to stay fixed. Alright, and we are now coming into the Minmus sphere of influence soon enough. So then we need to perform the circularization and the landing, of course. Alright. Finally, we are in the Minmus sphere of influence, which means I should be creating a maneuver node to tweak my periapsis to a more manageable state. So let's focus on Minmus. And now I'm gonna use a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Let's get this one. Okay, periapsis, 54 kilometers, 55. I'm thinking of around 14 would be enough. We want to get very low so that we can land. And I plan to land on one of the lakes because those are nice and flat. What I'm actually missing, guys, I'm missing the green Minmus. I really am. I don't know about you. Do, by the way, let me know in the comments below. Do you miss green Minmus? I'm not saying that it needs to be green as it was in the original game, but it should be greener. Because we are so used to Minmus being minty, and they said like Minmus is glass. And I get it, but I don't know. It's just one of the things. When you land on the moon, you know it's gray. When you land on a Minmus, you know it's green. Could be just me being an ass, but yeah, what can I tell you? Alright, so create another maneuver node, and this time we're gonna go for the circularization. So I'm just trying to figure out... Wait, I think I've managed to mess up my maneuver node. Once again, let's try again. And this time we're going to go with a circularization, and here we go. With apoapsis of also roughly 16 by or 18 by 14. I think it's good enough. It doesn't need to be perfect. And it's 162 meters per second. As you can tell, we have more than enough in our transfer stage to do that. And that's the whole idea. So my idea of this transfer stage is to actually get there. And here we go, closing in on Minmus. The idea of transfer stage is to basically brake, get there, and then eventually initiate the landing and then ditch the transfer stage. Screeny, or it didn't happen. Look at it go. Oh, this is just gorgeous. There we go. 7 minutes until our estimated burn. Three minutes. And there we go. Let's burn. Burn, baby, burn. There we go. Beautiful. And I'm actually happy with this circularization. So I have to make sure that once again I have not basically wasted any fuel. As you can tell, some fuel did get wasted. So I made sure that I transfer, and at that point, when I start doing the deorbit, I will probably ditch the stage. I don't think I need it. Okay, so to keep the video snappy, I have decided to cut the painfully 4 times accelerated part where I was getting my craft into the position where I could actually fire my thrusters and land on Minmus to a minimum. So what we're doing now is we are just doing the rest of the transitioning towards that crate or towards that lake, and my idea is that I want to be landing on that lake. So I've actually taken the micro-engineer where I have removed the vessel components. I just need stages and orbital velocity, because the part that I need the most was horizontal velocity, because I will be canceling that out for a vertical touchdown. Oh look, and there's a Kerbin in the background. Ain't it gorgeous? And if you hear the sound being botched, it's because of me basically accelerating this to, I think, 3 times roughly to keep the video flowing. Yeah, the game was not performing that well, but it was more like, you know, so to see the things going onwards correctly. Alright, now we are performing the Deorbit burn. And stage. Good. I managed to put the engine in the separate staging parameters so that everything is okay. And we have now this thing's firing, which is good. Thrust to weight seems to be around 17.1, which I think would be even possible to land on Moon. I don't know. I may try it in the future episode. But I felt Minmus is a good testing ground. It's very forgiving in terms of the landing, unlike Moon. Alright, Bill, ready to get yourself landed onto the surface of Minmus, buddy? So, kicking a little bit of the time acceleration just to find a good... that we make sure that we are above a good landing spot. So I was just checking out, making sure that we are over this lake. Like I said, I would have liked it to a little bit more green. It is like this pale green, but I would more like it to be a little bit more intense green. I don't know, maybe it's just my personal preference for Minmus, but I could be wrong. So now I'm actually burning to cancel out my horizontal velocity, as it can be told by the microengineer on the right hand side. So, and there we did it. So the horizontal velocity is 0.7, so we still have very minor drift horizontal, but we will be correcting this using our RCS thrusters. Remember, each part of this base had its own RCS thruster, so we have put down the landing gear, and we have begun an arduous journey of getting down to surface. So as you can tell, I'm using now the RCS thrusters to cancel out the remainder of the horizontal velocity. And I'm just burning in one direction until I get as low as possible, and then I try a different ones until I get as close to the zero as I possibly can. Right. Okie doke. I think that is actually pretty satisfactory in my opinion. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm just gonna place the craft retrograde, and we're going down for the landing. Screenshot, or it didn't happen, and let's go down. I kicked in a little bit of the time acceleration because I didn't want this time to last for like the better part of the 30 minutes. It does accelerate slowly, and I make sure that I'm cancelling out the vertical velocity because I don't want to slam. I didn't know how much thrust to weight, how quickly would this surface velocity be cancelled. You see, it doesn't tell me exactly here time to impact, and that's something that I had a while back. So that's something that I had in the KSP1, and that's something that I'm used to. But alright, it doesn't matter. We are coming down, and we are at 1,600 above ground level. And I'm just cancelling out my surface velocity bit by bit. And I know that if I hit the surface below 10 meters per second, I will be okay. So at the level of 800 kilometers, I cancelled out a little bit more of velocity, and making sure. I'm trying to now search for the shadow. I still don't see it. 500 meters. Cancelling out the rest of our velocity. We have plenty of delta V. We have enough delta V to get even back to Kerbin, so I'm not overly concerned in terms of using delta V. Do we have a shadow? Come on. Okay, I'm gonna go with the low thrust just to keep my surface velocity around 10-ish or below 10-ish. We are now 150 meters above ground. So just easy does it. Gently. Almost there. 50 meters. Can we see the shadow now? Oh, yes we can. Beautiful. Okay, that gives me a visual indicator of where we are reducing the surface velocity to 4, 3, 2, and Tango Delta. Touchdown. Ladies and gentlemen, the base has landed on the surface of Minmus. Screenshot, or it didn't happen, obviously. Beautiful. So all we need to do now is to bask and enjoy. This is, by the way how you actually get the base onto the surface of Minmus in KSP2. And a word of warning, it might affect your sanity. Yes. Right. So one thing left to do is we're not going to land here without planting the flag. That obviously has to happen. It must happen. So Bill, you have gone through too much, buddy, for us not to be enjoying to plant the flag and proudly bask, as we hinted in the intro as well. So, okay, there you go. You can go by this rock. All right. And plant the flag. I also had custom flags, you know, GrunfWorks, but for some reason, I don't know, I think it bugged out again. So rather than planting GrunfWorks flags, it planted the default one, and it was really feeling sleepy. So, okay, let's take a selfie of you, buddy. Oh, look at him go. It's just amazing. All right, guys, so this has been a rather long video. Hope you have enjoyed. Do hit the like, it helps me out a great deal if you have found this video educational and useful, and I will be seeing you in my next video. Thank you very much for watching. This is GrunfWorks and Bill, signing off from the surface of Minmus.